What's up, guys? How's it going, everybody? My name's Blitzwinger. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to a brand new LEGO Marvel Avengers showcase video. After the success of the Speedsters video, which, by the way, thank you guys so very much for over 1,100 likes on that video. Let's try to break that record on this one, because this is a big showcase, and no pun intended. Today, we're taking a look at every single big fig or big figure in the game. There are 25 of them, give or take. Again, you can kind of... I guess we'll see as the list goes on and as I showcase these. I actually genuinely would love to hear from you guys about whether or not you agree or disagree with the number of big figs and how do you guys count them. Plus, just like with the Speedsters video, I am very curious to hear from you guys about... I love how that guy's just like, I'm out of here. I ain't fighting this guy. I'd love to hear your opinion and thoughts on what is your favorite big fig. I'm also going to point out some cool elements about certain characters. And without further ado, let's get started with the first character. This is, of course, the one and only A-Bomb. Now, he can actually go on ahead and take the transformation activation into... I think is it Rick Jones? Yeah, Rick Jones. I kind of was like... I forgot if it was Rick Jones or Adam Jones, but... Ta-da! Rick Jones obviously is able to go on ahead and Hulk out, or I guess A-Bomb out, as he transforms into a much friendlier version of Abomination, who does actually help out the Hulk on several different occasions in the comics. Now, with that in mind, showcasing Rick Jones, who obviously can go on ahead and also scale buildings, and just like the vast majority of the big figs in the game, he has that super jump ability, which is just spectacular, and you can continuously time it so that as you're jumping, you time another jump, and then when you land, you're going to take off with another super jump already at the ready. Now, with A-Bomb out of the way, let's go on ahead and move on. I guess it only naturally makes sense that from A-Bomb, we then move right along to Abomination. This is the Abomination design that is actually based on the Incredible Hulk movie from 2008. Unfortunately, he can't transform, so he doesn't have any, I guess, sizing down into a minifigure scale. So what you see is what you get. Obviously, still has certain abilities like Thunderclap, the previously mentioned super jump that is pretty much available for all of them. And going forward, I'm not going to repeat every single one of these abilities. If there's something unique to the characters, then we're going to cover that. So, from Abomination, we then go on to, I know what you're thinking, maybe possibly Hulk. No, you'd be incorrect, because there's another character that, in my opinion, should be considered a big fig, and that is Ant-Man, because he can take the form of a big figure. In fact, I would probably even say a huge fig, because when we compare him to a big fig, you'll notice that he actually is... well, I would say maybe about twice as tall as the bigger characters in the game. So I think that he certainly qualifies to be a big fig. Unfortunately, he does not have the ability to hyper jump, so he is only able to move around relatively slowly. He still has a lot of his cool abilities available, so that's definitely like in terms of punches and kicks and ground pound attacks and all that. So that's kind of cool. And, yeah, with that in mind, let's go on ahead and move on to the next character, which, similarly to Ant-Man, is a character that can just become ginormous, and that is Black Goliath. So if we hold down the transformation button, we once again take form. I will say that maybe it's the helmet on Ant-Man, but Black Goliath does seem a little bit shorter than Ant-Man. I guess we could quickly just compare that just for the sake of this video to see. Yeah, I guess maybe it's the antenna and the helmet itself that makes him look a little bit taller. And maybe also, it seems like Ant-Man is kind of standing straight up, whereas Goliath is kind of a little bit more hunched down. So it's interesting that there's certain little animation nuances between the characters. But I will say that these bigger figs, outside of one that we will discuss later on, obviously have a lot more limited abilities in terms of what they can do when compared to big figs like A-Bomb or Abomination, whom we've already seen, because those guys actually have a lot more abilities that they have while they are still the bigger form that is available to them. So, here we go! Probably the most famous big fig in all of Marvel, and all of Marvel Avengers, I should say, or LEGO Marvel Avengers. This is the Hulk, and this is supposed to be the comic book Hulk, of course. We can go on ahead and transform him into Bruce Banner. Now, it's interesting because the costume that he wears is definitely the Bruce Banner movie design, so it's interesting that he then transforms into comic book Hulk. Because in the movies, I don't believe, at least from recollection, I don't recall ever the Hulk being that color of green. They usually have gone off with like a little bit of a different color. So if you are wondering about that color, you can actually transform into that Hulk. So if we pick Bruce Banner, Avengers Age of Ultron version, he can go on ahead and transform into that kind of more, I guess, almost like pastel green, more of the color of green that we see for the Hulk in the MCU. But for the most part, they're exactly the same. Obviously, there's a little bit of variance in the skin tone and the pants that he wears, and actually also a little bit in the facial details. They're a tad bit different between movie Hulk and regular Hulk, so that's definitely interesting. But other than that, all their abilities and ground pound attacks and all that stuff pretty much remains exactly the same. Okay, so from the Hulk, or Hulks, which again, I don't know how you count those, if you count those as 2 figures or 1 figure. That's why I said there's 20 plus characters, and then it's up to you to really decide how you're going to count them in terms of to get the most accurate number. So from there, we're going to actually need to scroll all the way through this second row over to here to, in my opinion, one of the absolute coolest designs in the game. This is what I wish the Hulkbuster looked like, and we will take a look at the Hulkbuster in a little bit, but man, oh man, Detroit Steel, just an absolutely ridiculous looking character. He's got this Gatling gun ability, which pretty much makes him seem like he's like War Machine or something like that. He has this chainsaw ability, which is crazy as well. I mean, look at that. That is bananas. This is quite possibly the coolest big fig in the game, just because he's so creative. He does a twirling jump, he can fly, which is so cool, because again, he's a big figure that can fly, so obviously that makes him relatively unique. There aren't very many characters like him in this game, and we'll cover all of them here today, of course. But I just wish that this is the design that they went with for Hulkbuster, because I think it would have turned out far cooler. And speaking of the Hulkbuster, you'll see him here in just a sec as well. But next up, we move on to a character right next to Detroit Steel, and this is, of course, Devil Dinosaur, who is an absolutely massive character, so I think he definitely fits the bill of being a big fig or a big character. He also does have the double jump flip ability, which does like a ground pound attack. Ooh, looks like there's some trouble over here. There's a little bit of trouble a-brewing. There we go. Okay, so apparently Devil Dinosaur can actually just straight up eat people. And then there's a nice little mighty roar to get rid of those other enemies there. Okay, so that's Devil Dinosaur. Pretty awesome. Obviously, pretty much the exact same character model that we've seen for the T-Rex in Lego Jurassic World. So they implemented that similar look inside of Lego Marvel Avengers, which, to be honest, nothing wrong with that, because this character is awesome and is super duper fun to play as, just because it's so unique when compared to all the others in the game. From there, we go on ahead and transition to, again, one of my personal favorites in the game. This is yet another big fig that can fly. Very unique design for Fang Foom, who not only is he already a big fig as it is, so like, for example, there's the Hulk, right? So by comparison, he kind of towers over the Hulk, especially like if he had picked up his neck upwards, he would be way taller than Hulk would be. But that's not all, because by holding down the transformation button, which in my case is going to be the Y button, boom shakalaka! The biggest character, biggest playable character ever made in any Lego game ever. Regardless of what game you're talking about, this is the single biggest character we have ever seen. And, I mean, he literally is basically the height of some buildings. Like, if we look at this building right here, look at this. He's essentially, what, 4 stories high, 3 stories high? That is crazy. And not only that, but he is a character that can fly in this form, which I think is just so cool. The fact that you can transform him into Fang Foom, but then you can also still maintain the ability to fly, which is crazy. Plus, fire away giant fireballs over the entire city, so you can literally just be pretending that you're Godzilla hovering over New York City. So, from there, we then go on ahead and move on to another big fig character, and this would be Gorilla Girl. And I know what you're saying, she does not look like a big fig. She definitely looks like a minifigure. Well, if we hold down the transformation button, ta-da! With that quick little transformation, she takes the form of Gorilla Girl, and she's able to, obviously, get around very quickly. So we went from Godzilla, right, with Fang Foom, as I had just mentioned, to now somewhat of a way to emulate King Kong, right, in terms of being able to scale buildings as a giant gorilla. So that works pretty well also. Now, outside of that, obviously you can see that she has the ability to go on ahead and super jump. She still has the double, like, fist, I guess, thunderclap, sort of. It's not really a clap, but, like, basically the characters smash their two punches together, creating a sonar blast because they're so powerful. So that's the impact from that. And then outside of that, obviously, again, just really cool to see yet another big fig and a really cool, unique transformation. When compared to all the other characters, you can see that it's not just like your typical way that we see for like A-Bomb or Hulk transforming. She actually has her own unique way to go back and forth from gorilla form and human form. Okay, so from there, we then move along to the Hulk Killer, aka the diaper-wearing character, because I legitimately swear that this dude looks like a giant red baby wearing a diaper. That's just me. I don't know. Clearly, I just probably am the only one that thinks that, but I just find this character to be not particularly all that cool looking. Still has this super jump. No transformations or anything unique to this character, unfortunately, outside of being pretty much, I guess, kind of a much more lame version of Red Hulk, which you'll see in a little bit. From there, we transform to our next character, which we're actually going to need to select Tony Stark for. So, Tony, we need your help here. Here we go. Remember the previously mentioned Hulkbuster? Well, here it is. Still, in my opinion, kind of looks lame just because of the brick-built element. I mean, remember that character that we just looked at not that long ago, so if we just bring him up again by comparison. Now, don't get me wrong, the Hulkbuster is obviously pretty ginormous. It's about twice as big as the Detroit Steel. But I really do think that it would have been so much cooler if they went ahead and made the Hulkbuster in that design. Maybe make it a little bit taller if you have to, but honestly, I think Detroit Steel looks 10 times better than this particular Hulkbuster suit. I know many people will disagree with me, and that's perfectly fine. You can leave what you guys think in the comments section below. And like I said, you can also leave your particularly favorite character in the comments section below as well. Now, with that in mind, he does have some really cool animations. Like, his fighting animations are very, very dynamic, and they're basically based on a sequence from the Avengers Age of Ultron movie. So I think that that's definitely cool. He also does have a lot of really unique abilities, like the laser blast. He has the go on ahead and targeted attack. He has the rockets, and he also has the heat vision ray to melt down gold Ergo bricks. So from a utility perspective, a very, very useful character in the game for sure. Okay, so from the Hulkbuster, we actually have another Iron Man armor that we're going to look at. Unfortunately, it's not on the quick selection wheel there, but it is available right here. And this was, for the longest time, many of us had thought that this was actually Hulkbuster. If you remember when the Iron Man 3 movie was coming out and we saw pictures of this armor in the concept art, everybody was like, oh my gosh, that is going to be the armor that he creates, that he then will convert and repaint into obviously being a Hulkbuster armor. Now, unfortunately, that was not the case, because I still do think that this design is cooler than the brick-built Hulkbuster that we have. But again, I will say that it does look really, really, really cool no matter what. This is also known as the Igor armor, and it's kind of like a construction suit that Tony uses to like hold up heavy things, like if he needs to repair stuff, or if there's like some crazy disaster where like a building has fallen or something like that. This is the armor that he would wear in order to deal with those issues. Now, speaking of issues that Tony needs to deal with, we've got the Ironmonger, which always and forever will probably make me think of that one scene in Iron Man 1 where Obadiah Stane is trying to get his scientists at Stark Industries to create or recreate the arc reactor. And remember when he runs in and he's like, I don't know, it's not possible to build this. And he's like, Tony Stark built this in a cave with a box of scraps. I love that scene. That is just such a great delivery there from Obadiah Stane. And this is a great design that they went ahead and built for the Ironmonger. It's a pretty plain design. There's not really much to it because it's pretty much an armor that is mostly silver, but it still looks really cool. It pretty much, to me, it always reminds me of the Iron Man Mark 1, which I guess is what they were going for but it's just a much bigger looking character because obviously Tony has always been able to optimize and be more efficient than Obadiah. So you can see that there's definitely a lot of similarities from the helmet design, from the arc reactor look, and the overall color scheme. So that's very cool. I just wish they would have maybe had a similar animation of Obadiah Stane popping up as they do for the Iron Man Mark 1. Okay, so from there, we then move right along to a character that appeared in Thor: The Dark World. And I will say that this character was absolutely lame in that movie, and it's not memorable at all, but I will say that the design for the character is actually pretty epic. Like, it looks like something straight up out of like Lord of the Rings or something like that, and I think that that's a very, very cool design. Unfortunately, because the character kind of didn't really get any attention or any type of actual character building moments, it kind of makes the character less exciting because there's just nothing to really, like, you know, attach to the character because there's no significance to it. But still, it's cool that the characters in the game has some interesting abilities, of course, in terms of big figs, like the ability to go on ahead and hyper jump, can wall climb, just like the vast majority of the other big figs, thunderclap ability, and his ground pound elbow drop is also indeed available. So from there, we then transform from Kurse over to, this is probably going to be the most divisive character as far as big figs are concerned, and that is MODOK, because he really is pretty much, for the most part, a minifigure. Like, you can see his entire torso is a minifigure, but then the head definitely is much more in the scale of like a big fig or something like that. So I don't know necessarily if most people will agree that he should be considered a big fig, but that's really up to you guys. Again, like I said, I did want to make sure that I showcased him because he certainly doesn't fit the regular minifigure design. So I wanted to make sure that we did at least showcase him. And plus, he is a character that I literally just recently, during the Lego Brick Adventures series, found out that he can actually go on ahead and fly. Because prior to this, I thought that he only has the ability to hover, but that is incorrect. He can actually, obviously, full-on fly. The interesting thing about him, though, is that the only way to get this character to fly is to go on ahead and hyper jump first. So you saw, similarly to a lot of the other big figs, which, again, maybe you could make the argument that he is a big fig because he also has the hyper jump ability. But similarly to a lot of the other big figs, once he hyper jumps, he is able to go on ahead and then carry on by being able to fly. So I guess he just needs like his hover chair to get some sort of like a starting boost, and then after that it's able to go on ahead and properly fly. So kind of an interesting distinction, and something that makes this particular character a little bit more quirky and different when compared to the others in the game. So from MODOK, we then go on ahead and transform to another character that can change in size, not really form, and that is Kamala Khan. So obviously with her elastic abilities, she is able to, similarly to Ant-Man and Black Goliath, take on the form of a much more giant version of herself, and outside of that, does not maintain any unique abilities in terms of, you know, being able to like elastically punch really far away, which I think would have been really cool. And that's one of the reasons why I said Fang Foom is so unique in this game, because not only does he become giant, but he's actually able to maintain most of his abilities, like the ability to fly or the ability to use fireballs, which is definitely quite unique. So from there, from Kamala Khan, we then transform once more, and now we are going to go on ahead and scroll over to here, to another character that looks very Hulk-esque. Like, this is almost like a Hulk if he was abandoned on some island or something like that, and he just was, like, left to survive for a while, and so he was just kind of chilling. This is Ravage. I don't know anything about Ravage, so I'm not going to pretend like I do, but there's Ravage. A bit of a generic-looking character. Again, Hulk with a giant beard, which I guess for some people will be like, that's awesome! So there you go. That is available in the game. Now, next character I do know quite a bit about, and I think is one of the coolest characters in the game, and one of the coolest characters in Marvel, just because, again, I'm a huge fan of the Hulk, and I think that, obviously, being, with red being my favorite color, when they announced a red Hulk, I was like, that sounds awesome! Now, of course, that could get out of hand, and they could literally start doing Hulks out of every different color, kind of like what they did with the color spectrum in Green Lantern, I guess. But who knows? Maybe they could do something like that and do like a Hulk War storyline, which would be kind of interesting, I guess. So here's the Red Hulk, who, if you did not know, can transform into General Ross. And the rumor is that this character will actually appear on the upcoming Disney Plus show for She-Hulk. So that's definitely quite exciting. So from there, we then go on ahead and transform to another Hulk adjacent character, I guess. This is Skaar, son of Hulk. This was a tie-in a character that debuted in one of the tie-ins to the World War Hulk / Planet Hulk storyline. And the thing about this character that is so cool is that he's basically a crossover between the Hulk and like Conan the Barbarian. So an absolutely crazy looking kind of like barbarian warrior, I guess you would maybe describe him as. He's got a giant sword that he uses for battle, which is obviously pretty epic, making him very, very unique. And he has a unique ground pound attack using said sword, which is super cool. So again, just a very, very unique looking character. And when compared to Ravage, for example, you can see that Ravage is almost like if they wanted to create Skaar but didn't have the rights for it. It's like the knockoff version. Like, it just does not look all that exciting. There's really no elements to this character that are particularly exciting, unfortunately. Sorry to all you Ravage fans. I'm sure that there's some of you, probably, hopefully. Okay, from there we move right along to Squirrel Girl. And I know what you're saying. What? Squirrel Girl? Really? Yes, really, because she has the Squirrel Buster. Of course, if you're wondering about the Squirrel Buster, wait a minute, is that literally the Hulkbuster but made up to look like Squirrel Girl? Yes, that's exactly what it is. It has a giant tail, it shoots nuts, as I guess its main ability. It does have the ability to actually fire away the nuts individually that way, so you can either use the nut cannon there, or the regular blaster. And then, I don't remember, does she have? Yeah, she still has the heat vision available also. Just like that of Tony Stark / the Hulkbuster. Okay, from there, we then move along to yet another Buster suit, and this is Stan the Man Lee. So we're going to go on ahead and select the Stan Buster suit. Ta-da! Which, again, exactly the same kind of, I guess, base and skeleton for all the Hulkbuster suits. So you notice there's obviously a lot of similarities, but there are some unique differences. Like for Stan Lee, they obviously went with the pencil because he's a writer. So it's like for the cannon ability, which I think is really cool and definitely unique. And then he has the little lamp over the shoulder as well, as though he's obviously sitting and writing. And you've got, it's basically kind of a desk setup on the backpack there. You can see like a cup of coffee or tea, I guess, a pencil, and the lamp. Again, very, very cool. Exactly the same set of abilities as we've seen on the other Buster suits. So there are 3 Hulkbuster armors, I guess, in the game. The Stan Buster, the Squirrel Buster, and obviously the original Hulkbuster. So from there, we then go on ahead and carry on. And I know you might be thinking, wait, are we not done yet? No, we're not done. There's actually a few more characters. So this upcoming one is the most expensive character in the game of LEGO Marvel Avengers. This is, of course, the Mad Titan himself, Thanos, who I really, really, really want to like just because it's Thanos. Thanos is awesome. But the problem is that this character just turned out to be a tad bit too plain, in my personal opinion. I just think that he could have been so much cooler if they gave him like a proper armor instead of just such a flat, plasticky finish. Like, I think that it would have been cool if they borrowed more of the elements that we saw with like Skaar, where there's actual sculpted details on the character. I think that would have been so cool if they did a similar type of armored look for Thanos, because I think that would have really taken this character up a notch and would have made him one of my absolute favorite big figs in this entire game. But we're not done yet. Still a handful more characters to go. So from there, we transition to the last row of characters, and this is Wendigo, who, again, exactly what I was just speaking to. I'm not a big fan of Wendigo. Not that I particularly dislike the character. Obviously, a member of the Alpha Flight and such. Somewhat cool character. Definitely neat to see him in the game. But what I will say is that the figure actually looks awesome. Like, look how they sculpted the fur on the arms and the legs and the giant like hair around the head. That's the kind of like sculpted detail that would have been really, really cool to see on Thanos. I do like that this guy actually has that running animation that's kind of on the four-legged, and it has this really thundering sound that's just terrifying. Like, if you hear that running at you, you're like, uh-oh, spaghetti-o, gotta run. So definitely a really, really cool big fig in the game, and one of those that gets probably not enough credit as a cool character in the game just because Wendigo is not a particularly popular character, but a really cool design for sure. Okay, from there we move right along to Atlas right here, who is another one of the characters that can just shapeshift into the ginormous scale here. So that is definitely quite neat. He has the ground pound ability and pretty much the abilities that we see on most of the bigger characters. Like, again, I don't even know what to call them because they're not big figs. They're, I guess maybe we could call them huge figs. So you can see that obviously you don't really retain a lot of interesting abilities, unfortunately, for them, except for, like I previously mentioned, Fang Foom. Okay, from there, we have another big fig that is up on the showcase. This is the second to last one. This is Man-Ape, M'Baku, who looks really epic. Again, one of those characters that I just love the fact that we have such really, really cool details for this guy, like the sculpted details on the fur and everything. That's the sort of thing that I wish, again, we would have seen on some of the other characters that we've already showcased before, like Thanos, like Ravage, like the Hulk Killer, like those types of characters. They just turned out to be relatively simple and kind of boring, whereas the characters like this, like M'Baku here, just so much attention to detail, really, really, really cool, and it really walks that fine line between being simple as a Lego design, where it's not overly complicated, it doesn't have like an insane amount of details, but at the same time it's not too plain to where it's just kind of boring to look at, because you're like, well, really, that just looks like a weird like custom that was done by somebody who's like an amateur doing customs. So I think that this thing is a really, really, really cool looking big fig in this game. So very, very cool character indeed. Okay, and then last but certainly not least, this is the Mindless One, which is quite possibly one of the most sculpted big figs in the game. This thing is just absolutely crazy looking. It's just a giant rock with a laser for an eyeball. So very, very simple as far as like, I guess the design is concerned. But honestly, I actually think it's kind of cool looking. It's so unique in the sense of the sculpting detail because it's all there. And it literally just seems like you're playing as a giant rock with lasers for eyes, which, I mean, sounds about as ridiculous of an idea as you've ever heard, but also sounds like an incredibly fun idea for a character. So with that in mind, there you go, guys. That is 25, give or take, characters. Again, you could count, maybe this is like 26 characters if you count the Hulks differently. Like, there's just different variances by which you could go as far as counting the characters, but let's say 20 plus big figs showcased in Lego Marvel Avengers. So now it's up to you guys to voice your opinion in the comment section below. Let me know which of these characters is your personal favorite. If you can't decide, we can do this. Leave your top 3 in the comment section below. They don't have to be in an order. It doesn't even have to be like number 1 is this character, number 2 is this. Just your top 3 that you like best out of all the ones that are available. Thank you guys so very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. And of course, I do indeed hope to see you guys here for the next Lego Marvel Avengers Showcase video. Bye, guys.